Welcome to Emotion Chips, where we explore the real reason everything happens for a reason. I am your host, Charlie Carroll, along with my lovely co-host, Mallory Redmond. Mal, what's going on over there?
I'm just organizing myself,
I see that.
getting comfortable.
Yes, you have everything over there for those of you that are tuning in via video on our YouTube channel that can be found on YouTube or at emotionships.com. You see Mal getting herself gathered and together.
Yes.
Welcome
I'm ready to go.
Welcome to episode number 4.
4. What a great number.
Yes, it was good to see our podcast finally get approved by Apple.
Yes.
Now I need to go out and get it on all of the other channels.
You have a lot of work to do, buddy.
Yes, I have not done that yet.
Good way to start the year, though. We got them up by the new year.
We did.
Which was our
We did.
personal goal.
Yes, and it was my fault that I forgot that Apple takes a decent amount of time.
Possibly.
Yeah,
Possibly.
possibly.
a
Right,
decent
exactly.
amount.
They say on their site that it could take anywhere from 30 minutes, yay, to 30 days. It took 10 for us.
Yeah,
not
that's
too
not
bad. No, I was hoping it would be more on the 30-second side of things.
I just think that's a hilarious amount of time. Why
Yeah.
even say 30 minutes?
Yeah,
Like a day to 30 days.
yeah, for sure.
Whatever.
We've gotten a lot of good feedback from the last episode, 20-mile marching.
Yeah.
If you're listening, we would appreciate you going to the site and leaving a review. Go to Apple, leave a review.
Mm-hmm.
Once we get it up on all the other channels, you can leave a review. But yeah, it's going well.
Yeah. I mean, that, like we said in that episode, 20-mile marching is a good concept to be discussing as we start the new year, which we're still in the first month of the new year. It's still fresh.
Yeah. How to organize your life and live your life in a way that you're happy with it 20 years from now when you look back on it, 20-mile marching.
Or 10 years from now, or 40 years from now.
Yeah. Today we're going to be breaking that down a little bit further and looking at 2 of the first 4 disciplines that you live into and do 4 times or 5 times a week.
Yep.
4 things you do 5 times a week, 20-mile marching.
4 times 5 equals 20.
One of the things that I do when I withdraw is...
Which is one of the things.
Yeah. We're going to
One of
talk
the
about it
4.
today.
Mhm.
Withdrawal is the first, and then the second one is the word where.
Are these in order? Are
Yeah.
they in any particular
Yeah.
order? Oh, they are?
Yeah.
I don't think I knew that.
Now you know.
Wow, I'm learning so much through our podcast.
Oh, boy.
Okay, go on.
So the first one is withdrawal,
Uh-huh.
and we'll talk about that. You need to withdraw and create some time for yourself first thing in the day. And then the second one is where. Be where you are, and when you are there, be all there,
Mhm.
where.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I do for withdrawing in the morning is that's kind of a self-care type thing for me, and I read. This is my time to get inspired. One of the things that I really like about books is you can take what took someone else a lifetime to learn, and depending upon how fast you are at reading, you can digest their whole life and that lesson in a very short period of time.
Yeah, for sure.
You reading anything good these days?
I am reading, oh my goodness, what is it called? The road back to you, or the long road home. I don't know. It's about the Enneagram.
Oh,
1 million people, or however many are listening to this podcast right now,
yeah.
are correcting me, because it's a well-known book, especially amongst the Enneagram community. I mean, it's one of like the main books. So I'm
And you
diving
like
in.
it?
It's really, really good so far.
I need to borrow it when you're finished.
Yeah. It's so good.
Uh,
Especially reading it. I already know what number I am on the I'm a 2 on the
Yeah.
Enneagram. And I know what number you are.
Yeah.
And, people that I do life with. And so it's fun to read it and just get more insight. They talk a lot about your childhood
Yeah.
and sort of how that has shaped where you are today. It's
Yeah.
really good.
That's awesome.
Yeah. What about you? What are you reading?
That has helped us a lot integrating the Enneagram along with a few other personality tests / assessments
Yeah.
into all of the businesses that we are a part of running.
Yeah.
Just helping people discover who they are so they know how to interact with others because they fully or better understand themselves.
Oh my gosh, it's so helpful. I don't know now how people like do life without having a better understanding of kind of where they
Yeah.
are on these assessments. I know
Well-
it's possible, but for me, it's just so helpful to know like, oh, I'm a 2. So this means like, so intrinsic need of mine is such and such. And so it's really helpful in being
Yeah.
in relationship.
I have this theory that a lot of our discrimination and biases come from a lack of understanding, not real bias or racism or inequality. That we just don't understand each other. And even when you're with someone that you love and care about, it's so easy to misunderstand your children or your spouse because you don't see the world through their perspective, through their lens.
Yeah.
And so what do you do when that's the case? You pick the lowest hanging fruit or the thing that you see the quickest and you blame it on that, because that's
Right.
what we do. Like, we just get frustrated and it's like, and then you point to something. You're so,
Yes. I think, yes.
I don't want to get into that, but that just
Okay.
made me think about that
I was ready to get into it.
yeah.
We can save that for another episode.
No, I think it would be a good episode.
For sure. I do too.
Because it's easy to, in a moment of frustration, to look at someone's skin color or ethnicity and just blame it on that
Yeah.
because you're frustrated and it's right in front of you, and make this generalization versus understanding that most of the world just doesn't understand one another and the way that other person sees the world through the unique way that they were made. And that's why conversation and listening, especially with the people you disagree with, is so important.
Oh my goodness. It's huge. Yes. I think there are, which we can talk about in another episode. There are deep-seated.
We've got to keep saying.
I know.
People are going to get tired of saying that.
I think that there are more. There's like racism is deep in our culture. I think it's deeper than just seeing things through another person's eyes. However, I think that is the start, right? To like sort of digging into where we've been as a country and like not undoing that, but moving forward in a healthy way.
Well, it doesn't. I think you're right that there are deep, crazy race problems and inequality problems and discrimination problems in our country. But often I think at the root and the cause of those problems are just not understanding someone, so you make these snap judgments, and then those things grow, and it really does, through a family's generations, become a race problem.
Right. So now the way that we're raised to see the world, we don't even realize
Correct.
a lot of the times the biases and
100%.
that we have. So.
100%.
But we can talk about that in another episode.
Yeah. It's often you'll hear me refer to that study from Emory University where they exposed mice that were in a hard situation or under trauma, under stress, to the smell of, I think it was rosebuds or something close to that, or cherry blossoms is what it was. And then they took their children and exposed them in a non-stressful environment, the children of these mice.
Mm-hmm.
In a non-stressed environment, they exposed them to the smell of cherry blossoms, and they put off the same fear response
Really?
to demonstrate how our opinions and our fears and our desires and basically all of these energetic releases in us, these emotion chips, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what that was for the mice.
Yeah.
Stress, cherry blossom, emotion chip.
Right.
That carried on to their children. And so when you find someone that gets frustrated or somebody laughs at them and they have a different skin color or a different level of education and they make a comment and their ears hear it and they start to believe that all people of this skin color deal with this, that gets your children don't start with a blank slate. They start with those biases.
Right. Which is something to consider if you're thinking about having children.
Oh yeah. It's crazy.
It is crazy. I mean, you just don't think about that kind of stuff because you just assume this kid is coming into the world with a completely blank slate.
Oh yeah.
What will they create and what will they do? And it's like so much of it is already created.
Oh.
What will they undo?
I mean, and that is really one of the reasons we started this podcast, because of the unintentional, in most cases, the unintentional ignorance of human beings to think that it's only what a child sees or hears that forms and fashions them or shapes them.
Right.
And those two things are on the list, but they're toward the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
It's good news is it's who you are, good news, bad news. It's who you are as a parent that is really shaping your children. You can manipulate, massage your words, hide your anger problem, hide your lust problem all day long. Energy is so much beyond
Mm-hmm.
what you say or what you think your kids see.
Right.
So it's good news, bad news, right? And
So true.
that's the accountability that God wanted built into humanity.
Yeah.
So if you're a person of character and you have integrity and you conquer your fears, the good news is that's who your children are going to become.
Right.
I have some curious, energetic children that are great.
Yeah.
Right.
You have great kids.
And people say that to us on a regular basis, and they're like, "Tell us your secrets. What do you do?" And the answer is, we live life. We don't try to hide anything. We own our mistakes. We let them see the good, bad, and the ugly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of that is healthy.
Yeah. That is something that I've definitely learned from you and Amy is, sometimes when we're having conversations and your kids are around, I'm constantly monitoring, like, can we say that? Can we talk about this? Can we? And 99% of the time, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
You're not, and it's not like we're talking about crazy stuff, but I am used to, like, well, the kids can't hear the hushed conversations, and you don't have that with your children. I know obviously there are things you don't expose them to,
Sure.
but
I want to expose them to as much as possible while they are under my roof, and I can help them process through it.
100%.
That doesn't mean that I endanger them by exposing them to things that their adolescent mind cannot handle.
Yeah.
But I do not want to shelter them, because someday they're going to figure out, if you're sheltering your kids, they're going to figure out that you are the manufacturer and architect of that shelter, and they're going to feel like they missed out and they can't trust you because you made a decision to do something to leave them out, and now all of their friends are aware of that and they get embarrassed and kind of draw this a conclusion that you can't be trusted with what they need to know when they need to know it.
Right. And that nothing good comes of the relationship then.
Yeah. I'm a little insecure here on the podcast, episode 4, Emotionships, today.
All right. Go on. Tell us all about it.
My legs are crossed for those of you that are watching via YouTube. I'm wearing a hole in my jeans already.
Did you just realize it? There is a
hole.
hole.
Well, no. I mean, they're not too bad. It's just starting, but it's between my legs, and it doesn't show anything. It's just starting. The hole is, the threads are there, and it's like, hey, these are just a little older than a year old.
What are you doing? We don't have to. We don't have to go there.
I mean, I don't know. I guess it means my legs rub together when I walk, which means.
Well, we'll talk about the workout part of the 20-mile march in
on the next episode. Yeah. So.
Okay. Well,
books.
now we
Getting
know.
back to the books. You were mentioning.
So I am reading about the Enneagram. What are you reading about?
Well, the only reason I bring this up is because I'm reading a really good one.
Oh, so you wanted me to ask you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Would you?
Okay. Please, Charlie, can you please tell us what you're reading?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about this. I am reading. The way that I work is I typically read several books all at one time, because I jump around. My attention span jumps around, and so it's easier for me to stay in it and get through the whole book if I'm reading a couple at a time. This one has.
Do you read them on your phone?
Or an iPad most of the time, depending upon the nature of the content. If it's academic based or it's biology based, and I know there's going to be a lot of details, then I'll get a hard copy so I can.
Yeah, I have to have that. I can't. I'm a paper kind of girl.
Yeah, I'm reading a lot of good books right now. The one that is occupying my attention the most is by Dylan Howard, CIA person who was involved with or has been involved with the investigation for Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh, yes.
Title of the book, and this is kind of with the security consulting firm that I've ran for a long time. I have worked with a number of investigators, undercover investigators, spies, all of those black ops type things. I've worked with some of these people, and Dylan Howard's book is Dead Men Tell No Tales. Story about investigating for a number of years Jeffrey Epstein,
who it just came out in the news that the video in the prison from the night of his death has been erased. Yeah. Correct?
Yeah, a lot of controversy. For those of you who are unaware of the story, Jeffrey Epstein was a young financial advisor. I think Bear Stearns, I'm not 100% Goldman Sachs.
Mhm.
I'm not 100%. I don't remember. I know he was involved with a number of them, but he got his start early. Had someone take him under his wing, and was known for being in numbers like a wizard, just really good at
Okay.
being a financial advisor. And
Mhm.
uh, I believe it's with Limited Brands, Lex Warner, maybe.
That doesn't mean anything to
Well,
me.
he had a big investment with him,
Oh, okay.
and was kind of taken under his wing and became his advisor. And then next thing you know, having this reputation for um, being good with other people's money, he starts befriending like a lot of powerful people.
Okay.
And the point of the book is that um, it looks at him just having been locked up, and then uh, being what they said was a suicide in prison,
Right.
looked by the autopsy looked more like a murder.
Okay.
And the book just jumps into who Jeffrey Epstein was, and come to find out there is a technique or a method of global, um, I want to say espionage, but it's not espionage. But there's a tactic that's been going on since people have been on the planet, called a honey trap. You heard of this?
No.
A honey trap is where foreign governments or foreign entities would want to get information out of another government, and they would send a spy to connect with a powerful person that would be able to um, frame, for lack of a better term, powerful people while they were having intercourse with people, of course, that they weren't married to, often younger women. So, foreign dignitaries, presidents, commanders at high levels in the army,
Mm-hmm.
uh, different spy agencies type of thing. And so, uh, this is all in the book, Dead Men Tell No Tales.
Okay.
They are chronicling how long they were trying to catch Epstein, because they knew that he was sexually involved, not only sexually involved with 15 to 17 year old women, lots of them, dozens of them, if not hundreds of them. But every time they went after him, someone above that local prosecutor would get him out of jail and almost erase the narrative. And so what the author is doing is looking at the investigation and pointing out this honey trap where Jeffrey Epstein was friends with a lot of world leaders and had this plane, I think it was a 757, that he converted, that had secret bedrooms in it, secret showers in it.
No, thank you.
Yeah. And he would take these world leaders on the plane, or to his mansion in New York, or to his mansion down in Miami, and basically would have trained these 15 to 17-year-old girls how to perform sex acts on him. And then once he felt like they were ready, he would take these powerful people, befriend them, have them over to his place or on his plane. And then what those powerful people did not know was, behind the mirror that was near the bed, or that mirror that was in the plane, there were hidden cameras behind it. And as soon as this powerful person got involved, having intercourse with a minor, the tapes were rolling from multiple angles on a regular basis. And then Epstein would take that, and that information was valuable to other governments. It was valuable to other political parties. And basically, that person, once captured on tape with a minor, was blackmailed to do whatever Epstein, or the person that had Epstein's information, wanted them to do.
I'm going to stick with my Enneagram book. This is so dark.
I mean, but the book goes on to list the most frequent visitors on the plane, and these are people we are all aware of. Very, very interesting, and I'm not making any accusations here. I'm just telling you what the book says.
Sure.
Former President Bill Clinton was one of Epstein's better friends and more frequent visitors on the plane. I think I remember the book saying that President Clinton would get on Epstein's plane and not let the Secret Service go with them. They would have to be in front of them or behind them on a different plane.
Another plane.
I think they said maybe 9 times or 13 times President Clinton was on the. Bill Cosby, Kevin Spacey. I mean, a lot of names. President Trump, a lot of names that everybody would be aware of. And they take this back to thousands of years ago, where this
Thousands of years.
Yeah,
What?
this I mean, thousands of years ago. Of course, they were not videotaping it,
Yeah.
right? But the same tactic, this honey trap tactic, has been used for maybe it's hundreds of years, but it's ancient. The
Yeah.
trick is ancient, and it's a way to blackmail a person or a government or a power to get them to do what you want.
So what did Jeffrey Epstein get arrested for? I can't even remember.
I believe it was misconduct with a minor,
Okay.
and so a prosecutor down in southern Florida, was after Epstein and would lock him up, and then Epstein gets all of these crazy privileges while he is there, and then just gets let go. And after this happens once or twice, the prosecutor is told, like, this is coming from above you. He is being let go, and this is being cleared from someone much more powerful than you. Don't touch it. Leave it alone.
So why did something so very much the opposite happen in this time? Where
Well,
he's now no longer alive.
somebody didn't. A very powerful person did not want him talking.
Would he talk?
Well,
when he would get out?
I mean, the book documents where 6-figure deposits were hitting his bank account on a regular basis. And so one of the reasons why they call it a honey trap is it gets really sticky really fast.
Right.
That you have multiple people working. The book questions, the author questions whether he was working for the Mossad, Israeli intelligence, or how many governments he was working for, because 2 Israeli prime ministers were caught on tape going into his house, his mansion in New York. I mean, again, it's all there for you to read, but at some point in time, one of the people that you're working for, or you think you're working for, is working against another person that you're working for, and now everybody's after the same money. Can you imagine being the president or a former president of the United States, and a foreign entity mailing you or getting in front of you and giving you a tape of you being sexually involved with a minor? What would you not do, right? Because the moment that's shown to the American public, or the moment that gets out, you're
right.
I mean,
Toast.
yeah.
I think I don't think I even want to know how deep and dark the world is.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, because stuff like this,
it's definitely real.
Yeah, and I'm so oblivious to, when I remember when the news broke that Jeffrey Epstein died, because we were working, we were together, and I told you, and I think you almost immediately questioned, because they said it was a suicide.
Yeah.
And you almost immediately questioned that. And to me, I'm
Yeah.
like, what? They said it's a suicide,
Yeah.
so it's a suicide. I don't know that I don't think I could even fathom how twisted things get, but I don't know that I even want to.
Yeah, I've just been around it so much in my life that world of spies and spying is so difficult and dangerous. I remember we used to train undercover investigators to go into Fortune 100 companies that had a lot to lose, right? And so you get a big company like General Motors or Procter and Gamble, and they have thousands of employees.
Mm.
Often, the administration at the top is so far removed from the hourly employees that are actually making their products that at varying times they want somebody that has no knowledge of what's going on to get in there on the ground level and see and report back to them with no bias.
Gotcha.
And so that's what we used to do. We used to train undercover investigators to be able to go work at these big companies. And I can remember we were doing an undercover investigation for a manufacturer of baby food, most popular company out there. And I could probably say their name because it's been a number of years now, but I won't.
You've probably said too much already.
Yeah. They hired us to come in because they thought that somebody was trying to sabotage their baby food because shards of glass had shown up in a couple of.
Oh, well, that's terrifying.
Yeah. And after months of investigating, what we found out was that some employees on the third shift were getting high while working. And when they found a glass bottle, for baby food, a glass bottle that was had a defect or a chip on it, they had drawn a bullseye on a wall and were throwing it at the wall to shatter them so they could not be used. Well, little did they know that glass was going way up in the air and landing 30, 40, 50 feet away to include going in the vats that were stirring the baby food.
Oh.
But I mean, there's stories crazy. I mean, I can remember being 10 years old and in the back of a surveillance van,
as we all are as 10-year-olds.
Yeah, I mean, I just grew up in it where we're videotaping, one of our undercover agents buying drugs out behind a restaurant because the restaurant was having all kinds of problems and needed somebody to figure out what was going on. I remember a really good investigator of ours who was in a huge plant that was controlled by the Teamsters and made automotive parts. And some of the people that were working with our employee, who was the undercover investigator, caught on to the fact or thought they knew that he was an investigator and not one of, quote unquote, one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so he tells this story. This is decades ago, but he tells this story where he goes in. They all go out to a bar after work, and he decides to go in and use the bathroom. And he's in the bathroom by himself, and he's standing at the urinal. And about halfway through using the bathroom, somebody comes in behind him, and he can't see. And next thing he knows, he hears the trigger pull back on a gun, and the gun is at the back of his head.
What?
Yeah. And the person says, I know you're a cop. You need to tell me now or you're going to die. And our investigator kind of called his bluff and said, just used a bunch of expletives and said, you're the cop, I'm not the cop. And the guy let him go and said, oh, I was just joking anyways. So that being said, when that came out and they said, oh, he committed suicide, I absolutely not.
Yeah.
No way, you know it. Someone did not want him telling stories.
Yeah, sure.
And that's the point of the book.
So what? So is that? So is
Dead
it the
men
end
tell
of
no
it?
tales.
That's just the end of. There will be no investigation or
Well,
anything.
I mean, again, they'll continue to investigate it, but when they say the tape was accidentally deleted, I mean, somebody very high up made an order for him to disappear, and he disappeared.
Right.
And that's kind of the danger in getting anywhere near that stuff in the first place.
It seems like this author really wrote this book really fast.
Was
he writing it while
I
Epstein
think
was still
so.
alive?
I think so. Or they utilized a team because they had thousands of pages of, or they had been pursuing Epstein for years.
Wow.
Years. They arrested him interesting story. I think it's at Teterboro. He flies in on his big plane, and all of the law enforcement, FBI and everybody, are hiding, waiting for him. And as soon as the plane touches down and the door of the plane come down, they kind of swarm the plane and arrest him.
Isn't it pretty risky for this guy to put the book out, or is he's not worried about that?
I don't know. It's a
okay.
good question. I mean,
Thanks.
I'm sure there's some thought there to that.
Yeah.
But they also are in that industry,
Yeah.
and so it's part of it when you sign up for it.
Right.
But it's sad, the technique that Jeffrey Epstein and his cohort, who was an assistant of his, middle-aged woman, I think in her 40s, who was an accomplice. They used to go find these young 15 to 17-year-old girls that were working at restaurants and country clubs and ask them if they wanted to make really, really good money by becoming a massage therapist. And when the young ladies would say, well, I have no background with that, they would say, well, we'll train you and we'll pay you to train you. You don't have to have any training. And then basically they would have them come over to his house in, I think it was Miami or maybe Fort Lauderdale. And there he would be, and basically they would say the more you do, the more you take off, the better you're going to get paid. And so that's what would happen. And they would say, if you, for every one of your friends that you bring back, we'll give you $1,000. But you see what's happening there as far as preying upon the people that needed the money.
Yeah, right.
A lot of young women that had already had family problems, that were relationally dysfunctional and in need of feeling important.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the lesson, the emotionship here, just in general, of course, not as extreme as all of this stuff with Jeffrey Epstein, is the more needy we are, or the more aware we are of what we don't have, or the more we focus on what we don't have, the more vulnerable we are to being manipulated, because we're looking for our lucky break in just exactly what we need.
Yeah.
And so I have said to myself 1,000 times, and I tell other entrepreneurs this or other businesses this when I am consulting for them, there is nothing more dangerous in your organization than insecure people. I mean, insecure people, I try to keep within reason. I try to keep my distance from them, because especially if you're confident and you know the direction that you're headed in, man, you are salt in the wound to that insecure person.
Right.
And so if you're going to be a good leader, if you're going to be a good spouse, if you're going to be a good parent, you need to know who you are.
Right.
Which means you really need to grab your life by the steering wheel and start driving it versus letting it drive you. And that's, of course, why we're talking about this 20-mile march.
Yeah. I mean, that even goes back to how we were talking about parenting in the beginning, right? And the ways that a healthy relationship with your children. Because if you're, I mean, I don't know the scenarios of the girls who were being called to work for Jeffrey Epstein, so I can't say too much about that. But there is something very important to be said about having a element of trust and comfort and vulnerability and peace in the home and in the relationship between parent and child.
Yeah.
Which a lot of those girls probably maybe did not have parents. Or
Well, that's what the book tends to indicate, is that these were people that were set up, right? Their parents were dysfunctional.
Yeah.
Their parents had certain beliefs that if the kids did not believe them, they manipulated them and treated them bad. And, and so it really comes back to, who are you, right? And what makes you who you are.
And that's why you read my book suggestion and not yours.
Exactly.
It's good though. I mean, it impacts generations, like we've said with emotionships, right? The way that the behaviors that you have and the relationships that come of the behaviors that you have, which come from the way that you see yourself. I mean, it's like a
Yeah.
domino effect.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's huge.
Yeah. My heart breaks for all of the individuals that, the book has a lot of the testimonies that were gathered by these women, and they're just, you hear the grief, and the grief is expressed with how they will not have a chance to see him justice served,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because his life was taken, which some would say justice was served, but with no opportunity to look him in the eye for some of these victims.
Yeah.
That is expressed in the book.
Yeah. Well, that level of trauma, it's just it takes a lot to come back from that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But it's really what we're talking about. That is why it is so important to live a life that is proactive versus reactive. And if we're honest, most of us live a life that is very reactive versus proactive. And the reason we thought we should come back and record another episode about 20 mile marching with the first two disciplines, getting a little deeper into them, is because just how hard it is to do that, to be proactive and say, this is how my life is going to be. I will adhere to the things that I've set up for myself. I will not constantly be reacting to all of the noise and all of the things begging for my attention.
Right.
And it typically is some sort of weakness, whether it's a weak business, a weak relationship, a weak person, something that is not whole, that screams the loudest for our attention. And you might be proactive today, but just because you're proactive, living a proactive life brings success. And there are very few things that will get you off track more than apparent success. Because what happens is you take your hands off the wheel because you like what you see now, or you take your foot off the gas.
Yeah, you start coasting.
And basically, before you know it, you're reacting to the good things, and that undermines the very disciplines you were practicing that got you to where you were.
Right. Yep.
And so the further you go, the more successful you are, the more people you lead, the more difficult life becomes, because it's that much harder to master yourself and protect yourself from all of the things that beg for your attention.
Yeah. And so we need to withdraw.
Yeah. And so the first W, there's 4 W's when it comes to 20 mile marching. The first one is withdraw. And it seems so counterproductive, but the most successful people of all time are people that recognized and found the value in withdrawing before their day would start. Finding a consistent, safe place that was free from distractions, where they could remind themselves of who they are, what makes them who they are, what their beliefs are, what their day is supposed to look like, and what potential noise they could come across that might pull them off of their path. This is the time that I use to have a time of meditation and jump into what I would call a time of devotion, where I read, I pray, I meditate. Again, the more successful you become, or the more people that are in your life, the more difficult it will be to honor the priorities you set for yourself, or the disciplines you establish for yourself, if you are not touching those disciplines on a daily basis.
Right. So how long do you spend withdrawing each day?
Well, it should be the more you have on your plate and the more people you lead, the longer you spend withdrawing.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And someone would say, well, how can you do that? Well, if you're successful at leading people, you hopefully are already standing good people up around you that are going to be your frontline leaders, actually leading the work that is happening, while you work more on the business than in the business. And so you have people like John and Charles Wesley, or Jonathan Edwards, or even very successful business leaders or past presidents, speaking of presidents, like Abraham Lincoln, one of the things that Lincoln said about the importance of withdrawing is that he rather spend the first 2 hours of his day sharpening his axe versus running out to the forest like everyone else to start swinging it so they could get done in front of everyone else or be quicker than everyone else. And I love that analogy because it is so true when it comes to our lives and all of our responsibilities at work and getting the kids to wherever they need to go. Like, we are very quick to put our needs and our self-care on the back burner, and then we go through life dull, right, without a sharpened edge, get horrible results. It takes 2 to 4 times longer than it should take. We become disenfranchised, which only makes the problem that much worse because we're not good for ourselves, let alone all of the people around us. And then we've got to find something else to do or move on to the next project because we wonder why it's not working.
Yeah. It's like the oxygen mask analogy on the airplane. And if you are working to put everybody else's on, I mean, you're going down. Die. Yeah.
Put your own mask on first.
Yeah.
And so that's what withdrawing is. Some of the secrets that I've learned over the 10 to 20 years that I've been doing this is you've got to set your bedroom up or your routine up in a way that makes it easy for you and convenient for you to withdraw. You've got to find some good disciplines, like I don't pick up my phone and check my messages first thing in the morning. I don't check Instagram first thing in the morning. And it's not because those things are bad, but they're full of noise. And any one picture or sound or comment or thought from any of those things or, whatever, can pull you into something already. And this happens to me. I often sit at my desk. I have a little desk in our office at home, and I'll pull up my computer because that's where some of the books are that I read. And if I'm not careful, a message will drop down, and basically just say that it's coming in, or I will have had my inbox up still from the night before, and I'll see one thing. This has literally happened to me several times. Oh, yeah,
this is my entire life.
You see one thing, you're like, I'll knock that out real quick.
Yes.
3 hours later,
right,
you have been already in business, and you're running behind. Your mind is cluttered. You haven't looked at your schedule for the day.
Yep.
You're dull. You're not sharp. All of those things.
That's so huge, I think, not looking at your phone first thing in the morning. And, I mean, people say this all the time. This is not brand new information. But it's so hard for me. What gets me is not, like, the social media. It's my emails or text messages.
Yeah.
Because I see it, and I'm like, oh, my gosh, I know the answer to this. I can respond to this. I can give this person what they need. It will take me no time at all. And then you just go down a rabbit hole. And before you know it, the day has begun.
Yeah.
And the entire point of starting your day early was to withdraw. And instead
you don't feel good about your day because your day just kicked your rear end.
Mm-hmm.
When you are made to make the day listen to you, you don't listen to the day. Now, there are some situations where you cannot prevent this, but by and large, 90% of the time, you should be in charge of your day. Your day should not be in charge of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm always thinking, like, I know I have an awareness of what I'm doing. And so I'm always thinking, this person does not need this response to an email at 6 o'clock in the morning. Like, they're not sitting at their computer waiting for me right now.
Well, yeah. Well, the problem is there are other emotion ships at play there, right? I don't want to fall behind.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's the emotion ship there? If I fall behind, I might miss out on something. If I miss out on something, I might not be as happy. If I'm not as happy, and you just trace it all the way back.
Right.
What is the energy that you can't see with the naked eye or touch or maybe even smell or hear? But energy is in motion all around us. It's an emotion ship always begging us to come off of our routine.
Right.
And so this 20-mile marching, taking 4 disciplines that you do 5 days a week, is the best way for you and your family, your kids and your grandkids, to get to where they want to be 20 years from now, to look back on their life and say, yeah, this is what I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
And so the first thing that you can do 5 days a week for the next 20 years in order to make sure that you have the life that you want to have 20 years from now is start your day off by withdrawing.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have a lot going on. That's not true. Most people, some people, not most, some people will say that. We all have a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more you have going on, the more you need to withdraw. And to the person that says to me, well, I don't have time to withdraw, I will show you the person that literally has been sucked into the vortex called their life, and they're spinning so fast, they have no idea what's going on. And typically when I help those people or consult for those people, we find 3, 4, and 5 hours in their day that are not being used. They're just being wasted.
Yeah. I will say for people who are listening that are in the season of life that I am, where your kids are very unpredictable. Like I have babies.
Yeah.
And they're the time that they wake up is very unpredictable. So I could set my alarm earlier and earlier and earlier, and they could wake up earlier.
Sure.
And earlier. So there is a level, to me, I'm finding that there has to be a level of grace based on the season of life that you're in. But there is, there's nap time or, whatever it is. So
yeah. And that's, let's speak to that just for a minute, because most of the time it's the mother of young children that struggles the most or has the best argument against withdrawing.
Oh, I will argue this with you. Go on.
For sure.
Let's go.
You can take a lack of organization or predictability and make it predictable by saying how you will respond to those times.
Oh, sure.
And so, like you said, as an example, you can't control that your child gets up at 3, right, and wants to eat, but you can control what you're doing while you feed them.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can control what you're going to do with the first nap that they take.
Right.
And that's, we definitely don't want to become our worst enemy and criticize ourselves and be full of negative thoughts because we're not living up to the expectations we set for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We're just trying to create a template or a general level of understanding for how we're going to grab a hold of our day at the beginning when we withdraw.
Yeah. Because I'm practicing this, I'm working on it, and I am a different version of myself when my kids get up. If I do have that time to myself in the morning, even if it's 20 minutes. I mean, obviously I would like for it to be more, but even if I can start the day off with like quiet me moments, where I'm in prayer or I'm able to read or whatever it is, that my day's off to a different start.
Because you've got to coach yourself. You've got to get your attitude right. Right? You've got to remind yourself of what could come down the path today, and how you respond to it is 99% of the battle. You can't always control what you're up against, but you can control your response to it.
Yeah.
And why that matters is because it's the people who control their response and realize that you can't control everything, but you can control your attitude.
Mm-hmm.
You can control your concentration. You can control your effort. Like, all you've got to do is control what you can control. And what history tells us is that things will work out better for you.
Yeah.
And so that's why withdrawing is so important.
Yeah. And I think that our intentions are not going to change us.
Yeah.
But I do think that they can help to shape us and where we
Sure.
go. So like last week, I intended every morning to get up before my kids and have this withdrawal time. And our daughter had this terrible stomach bug. And so she kept waking up at every hour covered in various bodily fluids. And I thought, well, this is like everything in me wanted to have the time to withdraw, wanted to make it the start of my day. And these circumstances did not allow that. But my intentions were good and they were right. And they will continue.
Yeah.
And there will be some days where I don't get that time in, but I intend to as often as I can. And I got it in at a different part of the day. But
your intention really is everything at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You don't always get the benefits from an intention like you do in action.
Yeah.
But all actions start with intentions.
Absolutely. And so I think that's important for a lot of people to hear who might feel overwhelmed at starting this.
For sure.
Start with your intentions and see where it takes you.
Yeah. So intention is the first, or intention. Withdrawal is the first of the 4 disciplines that you're going to do 5 days a week.
Yep.
The second one is where. That you need to live your life based off of a calendar, preferably on your phone where you can see it, give you reminders, and update and go away. But you need to schedule where you are going to be based on what you need to accomplish so that you have some sort of idea as to what are the buoys or the mile markers for the day, and am I in tune with those? Am I on time with those? Am I where I am supposed to be? Or am I allowing anything that jumps in front of me to pull me to the side? I'm still working on this one.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah. Because it's not just,
It's so hard.
it's not just, okay, put a schedule in there and then have the flexibility to do whatever you want and get pulled to wherever, whatever screams the loudest. The point is not just being where you are physically, but it's mentally and emotionally. If you're supposed to be there, there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
And just because your butt is there in the chair or your feet is there behind that desk or counter doesn't mean you're there. And if you're not there where you are, you're going to have a real hard time getting to that next place that is better than where you are now. And so I really think that one of the major reasons we see people stalling and not growing or advancing in their career or on their life path is because they're never where they are.
Right.
They might be where they're supposed to be, but they're never where they are. Emotionally, some sort of need or emotionship has pulled negative emotionship has pulled them out from where they are and where they're supposed to be to where they want to be.
Okay, so say what you're saying. Give an example.
Well, okay, so in the restaurant that we own, it is very easy, especially in the Midwest, to view a job as a server as a stepping stone or as a stop just to put enough money in your pocket to get to that next place. Like you're a med student, you're an attorney, you're in school. And so when you're at work, I talk about this at the restaurant all the time. You're very objective driven. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing, but you're on autopilot and you're not paying attention and you're not learning all of the life-changing, invaluable hospitality skills that you could be, because you're just going through the motions and you're very objective driven versus seeing every opportunity as a learning opportunity to get better at paying attention to people's needs.
Yeah.
When I pick up that wine glass or I'm taking that cup of coffee to the table, did somebody fill it too high? Is it going to be awkward for someone to try to drink? Does that napkin have a spot on it? Like all of these things, I say on a regular basis that if you can do hospitality well, you can do everything well.
Oh my gosh, that's so true.
Because if you're going to be an owner, the first step to being an owner of a restaurant is acting like you own it when you're a server. And so that's what I mean by it's a small example of being there. If you're there, and get the most out of it because you're already there.
Right, you might as well.
I say that to my kids at school. Like, I know that you're not crazy about being at school for 8 hours a day, but number one, you've got to be there. Number two, just because you're there doesn't mean you're learning everything you need to learn. Number three, if you're going to put the time in, you might as well get the most out of it.
Right.
I can remember being in high school and we had a stellar soccer team. We were ranked in the state and ended the season undefeated. And there was kind of this unspoken energy around the team and the success and all the news articles and, whatever, breaking records and scoring goals. And I can remember standing at some practices thinking, like, I just want this to be a game. Like, let's just get to Saturday. I can't wait till Saturday. Well, the problem with that is you've got practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's going to make you that much better and prepare you that much more for the game. And if you're so looking forward to the game that you're emotionally and mentally there, you're not going to be as good as you need to be when you get there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. The amount of things that we miss out on
Oh,
because we're like wishing away the day or the season of life that we're in. I think about this all the time because I
Yeah.
have 2 children under 2. And so me and my husband work very hard to be present and to like love this season, because we know our oldest is almost 2. It flew by. And I mean, that's only 2 years, but it's going to fly by this time with our kids. And
Yeah.
so really trying to be completely present. And the other thing I will say about where that I think is super important is the power and importance of the word no.
Yeah.
Like turning things down. You do not have to say yes to everything and fill up your schedule to your own detriment.
Well, we need to have a whole episode about saying no. That, you've heard it said, number of books have been written about this business, like self-help type stuff, self-improvement type stuff, that you can only say yes to so many things. There is a prequel to that says what you say no to determines what you can say yes to, right? And
so good.
I would come at it from the standpoint of your willpower, which from a neuropeptide is right under your heart with your sacrum. That is like a battery. It's a muscle that wears out. And so you can only say no to so many things before that wears out. Like my kids sometimes get a yes out of my wife by wearing her down. Right.
Yeah.
No. Okay, fine.
Just leave me alone.
I'm just tired of saying no.
Yeah.
And so no is a huge thing when it comes to 20 mile marching and becoming the person today that you're going to be happy with 20 years from now. You have got to say no really well.
Yeah.
And when it comes to that where, you need to be where you are and be there. And you do that by saying no to all of the other things. The more successful you become, the harder you want to achieve your destiny, the further you go, you will have to get better at saying no so you can be where you are, because you recognize that where you are is where you're supposed to be. And because you're supposed to be there, you're supposed to be there emotionally, physically,
And you're going to be better at
there.
saying no if you take the time to withdraw. Center yourself,
100%.
figure out what your day holds.
Because you're cheerleading yourself in that time of withdrawal in the morning that says, I don't care how excited I am about this. I'm first. I'm going to cheerlead me, and I'm going to make sure that I know this is what I'm doing for the day.
Yeah. It's good. Good stuff.
20 Mile Marching, episode 5, right around the corner, where we will be talking about the other 2 disciplines.
Can't wait.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Emotionships, where we talk about the real reason everything happens for a reason.